Hey,
Hey, are you there?
hey, I'm doing great. How's everything on your end? Well, yeah, let me go through this little clip I have to do to make sure that uh, everything's one-on-one. And
All right, sure, go ahead.
yeah, the following non-disclosure may not be suitable for all audience listeners. This episode 7, a 1-hour trailer that we gave earlier, this follows. And well, we've had over 9,300 to date listeners since December 14th of 2018, and that's pretty good. That's darn good. And for the next hour or more, listeners will be entertained. Well, it could be life-changing for others. You know, they'll have to decide. I'll give it to them, and the way it was given to me by my ET handler was that in July of 2014, I got a new ET contact because my ET handler I discovered went rogue, and yeah, he went rogue back in 1958, and I want to add something here that you were so right on. I mean, you're so perceptive. Remember you asking me if the adult blonde male who attacked my mother when I came home from school when I was about in the 3rd or 5th grade. Yeah. You asked me if that was the ET handler. Well, it was, but in a mature adult state, and that's what that ET informed me in 2000. I'm just interpreting the best I can what I received from my ET contact, who replaced my original ET handler back in 1958, who went rogue. And that's the reason why he was popping in and out of my life all the way through my life until 2015 when I moved up here to Bigfoot country. That's the last time I saw him. But this ET contact who I met prior to moving up here explained everything. And you were right on way back when I discussed that encounter my mom had with that would-be rapist or strangler when I came home from school. That was the ET handler who shape-shifted into an adult. Now, here's the real kicker. If people have been following these episodes and they can timeline it and go back to the incident, at that particular time, I didn't realize it. But when I advanced forward to the mid-'80s, just before my mother passed away and became a spirit in the Whalen house, I had found certain evidence of her doing everything from Catholic witchcraft to voodooism and stuff like that around the house because she was looking for answers. She was looking for answers at all levels. Well, it came to find out back, if we advance forward to 2014, when I find that picture of Ben in a picture between a religious picture and the back of the frame, I went crazy. I ripped the painting. I ripped the photograph in front of my son. He didn't know why I was going crazy. I was just overwhelmed by it. But it all made sense when I crossed the T's and dot the I's. When I think about this timeline, they had been possessed by Ben also, and I didn't know it. That whole house, my stepfather said it was haunted. It was evil. Well, he didn't go into details, and maybe he didn't know either why. But Ben was harassing them too way back then because he couldn't get to me. Now, I'm going to sum it up this way. And if people are going to accept it or not accept, that's up to them. But this is the way it was told to me. Okay? Everybody has an ET handler from the time they're conceived. Their spirit, soul combined together go into the embryo or whatever. When you come out, you have an ET handler. Some people call them guardian angels. There's a whole bunch of names, But my point is this. I've been able to track this because of my designation and the way it was revealed to me back in the early 50s. So if we can go back and just kind of give an overview, which I want to do, and you can edit this any way you want, my man, because it is filled with strange, mysterious things that started in 1943 to 1980. When I was born in 1943 by cesarean, and my real father made a choice that my mother should live and not me, the doctor gave him the news we would both survive. That was because of my ET handlers, or the powers that be back then, decided that we should both live, my mother and me. Then in 1946, I had that near ET abduction. Remember me telling you? And originally, I was, how it went down. And it came to find out that that was an attempt to rescue me, not to abduct me, but to rescue me from the things that they knew was going to consecutively take place based on the type of abuse my mother was having and I was having in turn, okay? Because crap flows downhill, I was getting most of it, and I didn't know for the rest of my life why I was treated that way. Well, as the story continues, I was informed, wait a minute, I got a signal going on. Okay. Hang on. All right. Are you still with me?
Yes.
For some reason, my smoke alarm went off. I'm getting a lot of distractions here too. I think the powers that be that I can't see in the invisible realm are debating whether or not I should go through with this. I swear to God. Anyway, so from in 1958, okay. If we go from 51, I had nightmares from that moment on, from those moments of near abduction for my rescue, of being in a sphere and not being able to get out of it. Okay, I had these nightmares until I was 13 years of age. I would hate to go to sleep because I know instantly I would find myself in these invisible, transparent, foggy spheres. Okay, so in 1956, when I told you I lived on McAllister Street in San Francisco, and I had already met my ET handler in high school and all this stuff, and I told you I went to the shape-shifting image with that Bible levitating after that incident. Well, my ET handler, Ben, was witnessing this, and he went berserk when I went into this transformation. And this is what this new ET back in 2015 was, explaining to me what happened in that event, in that previous event back in 58, was that my ET handler had crossed the line. He had another individual who was a priest that he was trying to also prepare himself to harvest his spirit, because that's what they do. They harvest spirits. And in episode 7, pilot, I mentioned something that really got your attention. They harvest souls. That's what they do. And you said, oh, man, I never heard that before. Well, it all comes together now because I've been informed what really goes on. And in the hereafter, okay? So that was an incident, and let's just say an event on this taking place that I was completely unaware of during that time period or that timeline when I was young.
Dave, can I just stop you for a second?
Yeah.
And ask a question for the audience that I'm sure a lot of the people in the audience are curious about. So you've referred throughout our, most of our episodes, you refer to this idea of the ET handler, which is an interesting idea. And I think a lot of people would be wondering, Brother Whitecrow, how do we know, what makes you think these are ET handlers? I mean, you've had the experience, you've shared some very strange experiences with some of these individuals. I mean, very weird. And one of them, you hit with a car. You've seen this guy around a lot, and he just shows up at the right time, and then you hit someone with a car, turns out to be the same person, he crawls out from underneath, almost superhuman. But what makes you think that some of these individuals are actually non-humans, ET handlers, as you like to call them? What makes you believe that, and how do these communications take place? Is it in a dream state? Is it in person? Just fill us in a little bit.
Okay, let me go through something here, which is going to be very hard for the audience to digest, because it was hard for me to digest, and even to this day, to step beyond my rationalizing, my religious background and my religious belief system. I'm just repeating and translating what was told to me, and it's up to the listeners to accept it or not accept it. But it's a fascinating thing I've had to live with all my life. 77 years, less 3 in the beginning before my abduction. I've had to go through this stuff. And it all was bits and pieces of stories that just didn't seem to link up until recently in 2015 when I finally settled up here in Bigfoot country. But here it is, the 3D universe that, that to us has a focal point reality. Now, this is how they visually communicated to me, and if I interpreted it wrong, I'm sorry, but this is how I observed it, okay, and experienced it. Okay, this is about, it concerns human species only from a single point perspective. The human 3D perspective, which is us, produces a constant 3D universe. Okay, some people call it a hologram, some people can call it a dimension, some parallel, whatever the hell you want to call it. Okay, but it's all based on an independent frequency galaxy composition. Each individual galaxy we humans observe in the cosmos from our viewpoint in space has its very own original independent frequency galaxy composition. And all matter, species, debris, star, solar system, galaxy hum, vibrate, and hum to the same tune generated by their own unique galaxy composition makeup. Each and every element sings and vibrates, making up an original physics score, if you want to look at it that way. What may appear common from our observation on Earth, from whatever Earth feedback receivers we send out in space with our technology, which is very primitive, in most cases is misinterpretation. For example, the light band spectrum we use to break down and count in the compositions of heavenly bodies we look at through our telescopes and satellite scopes in space is received and or transmitted back and translated and evaluated and interpreted by humans who do not really see the big picture. So much is lost in Earth's receiving the information or the truth. Okay? Let's take Alpha Centauri. By the time its light waves reach and it arrives Earth, okay, the ET contact told me in his advice, he says, gravity, we have out there gravity plasma. You know what that means? No, I don't know what that means. I thought in my mind as he's given me this impression. But he's telling me that this gravity plasma composition distorts the true reality of space motion when viewed and understood and interpreted from humans or the scientists. Okay? So if you're going to go back over this stuff, I can only add that ETs are kind of like in the spirit world, okay? And in that realm, they look at our dimension or our they call it a 3D reality. And it's a reality to us in the light realm because they come from the dark realm. Okay, and originally they have no proof, but they go by the fact that their assumption is that they were banished into the darkness of space. Okay, and they over billions and trillions and Google periods of time into what this ET contact viewed to me. Explain to me the mental level of interpretation, that they wanted to find the truth, and the only way they thought they could find the truth was to combine their forces, and there are trillions of them out there, to take the highest, let's say, potentiality they have and focus on getting information from the spirits that leave the bodies of human beings in this light realm we call our third dimension. And so I'm going through this soup of confusion. How does this relate to me? Well, where the hell did these guys come from? In my dreams and in my realities. Okay? Well, they pop in and out. They have gained the ability over a short period of time to enter the three-dimensional light realm that we live in, the three-dimensional world we live in. Okay? Mm-hmm. And the way he explained it to me, that when humans reproduce, the moment they become a conscious being, the spirit soul enters them. And at the point of their decease or their demise or death, the soul dies with them, but the spirit leaves. Okay? And it's that spirit that evolves in like a speck of light that they're trying to harvest. And for what unknown reason they don't know, there's some that make it to wherever they go because they actually just blink out. But the ones that they remain or they're able to capture, they study. They study and they investigate. And I am just, I am just a result of one of trillion research projects that they got going on. Okay? And so that's what I'm just sharing with you. Just a very small tidbit of that reality of what they say happens to spirits when they leave the body. Now, he said there are some ETs that believe the ones that make it past their nets, if you will, and that's just something I just put out there right now, of harvest, are ones that are a little bit more advanced in accepting something good in life that they had gained. And the ones that they capture are the ones that are confused, the ones that don't believe in where there's a hereafter for them or there's whatever. How they're able to break that down, I have no idea. But if they're trillions of years advanced in the dark side compared to the cosmos we live in, the third dimension, I can't fathom how that's possible. Which leads to many things he explained to me that I find impossible to accept or believe. And I could tell my audience right now, hey, you know what? I'm possessed. I've got these demonic forces downloading all this crap into me to stir up the soup of confusion and desire and hopes and shit that other people out there might want to accept as, the truth. Nobody's talked about the hereafter except on a religious Old Testament, New Testament explanation that everybody has a different opinion. And that's what he said. That's how he came on to me. He said, I'm going to tell you something that nobody else has got a reality of how we perceive it in our world. So I'm going to share it with you. And that's how he did it. But they communicate with me with visualization, not words.
So was this a meeting, in-person meeting somewhere, or?
Yeah. I started. It was in 2014, just before I left Ocean Beach, California. Where there was a host of all kinds of other stuff going down before I left, and it came to a head, and that's the reason why I decided to leave Southern California. I come to find out after I originally called this guy E.T. Gray, like E.T. Gray contact. He isn't, I only called him that because he looked great to me. He looked like a human being, a thin guy, about 6'7", thin. He was gray all over, his face, hands, and whatever. And he always wore the same suit. And I always saw him at this, I'm not going to do any shout outs, but he was at the market next to where I lived. And one day I was thinking about this, if there really is ET extraterrestrials, on that particular day I was shopping when he was in the checkout lane, I was thinking, I bet they look like this guy. Well, he was ahead of me and he checked out, and I followed him. And as soon as I went past the entrance and exit door of the store, he was sitting in the patio, and he motioned to me to come over and sit down. So I, curiosity killed the cat. I went and sat down adjacent to him, and he said, he started off by saying, there's a young lady who you're familiar with that's going to come around the corner, and she's going to be talking about ETs are chasing her. And I'm thinking, who is this character? Well, no sooner had he said that at that particular location and time and day back then, this girl that I had noticed but didn't know personally came around the corner, and she was in a half run, hysterical, shouting, the ETs are chasing me. Can you see them? Can you stop them? Can you help me? Can somebody please help me? And she continued running down the street. And I go, what the hell? First, how did he know that was going to happen? And why am I sitting here? Why am I sitting here listening to this? So now all of a sudden I started to get, I don't know if you have, sometimes when you try to imagine like a place or a situation or a person you recall in your mind, and it's either a happy or a sad moment in your life, you actually get a visualization. And being an artist as I am, mine is kind of acute. And so I got a vision of him sitting next to me, and all of a sudden I started to see kind of like a translucent screen of answers to my curiosity. Who was he? Why am I sitting here? And I would see flashes of the cosmos as I knew it, you know, the stars, the planets, and stuff like that. And I would see things from my past, like I was dying, and I got a glimpse of all my life flashing before me, but it was, some were speeded up and some were slow. And I visualized myself, I actually visualized myself asking why this? So then he began to give me not a kaleidoscope of confusion in visuals, but he began to show me from the moment that I landed in San Diego after leaving in 1994 and getting that. Remember I told you about the spheres predicting where I was going to move to back in 94? It came on the wall where I was living in San Diego. And then I went to Ocean Beach. Yeah. Remember that?
Yeah.
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 And he started with that. You know, and then showed me sequences going back and forth. And then he showed me, you know, my thought was, well, why are you here? Was my thought in visual. And he took a picture of Ben. He showed a picture of Ben in my head. As it turns out, he turned out to be kind of like a skip tracer, like a bounty hunter. And he knew that Ben was in the vicinity, and I had told you I had seen him. Remember, after I found that picture and everything, I went out on the porch, and I was Ben looked back at me in the alley, and I got kind of really paranoid. I couldn't hardly wait to get out of San Diego. Okay, well, he clarified why he was there. Okay, so then he began to say things, not say things, but visualize things, that he would be my contact, and I could refer to him as my ET contact. Okay, although he had a mission to capture Ben and take him to justice. That's my opinion. That's not what he visualized to me, but that's what I thought. That came out of my mind. So trying to separate reality from this actual event and share it with the listeners and proceed with how I really want this entire show to go. What have we got, an hour, a half hour? What is this?
Oh, we have about an hour left.
Okay. So I'm looking at some very important notes I put down here to make sure that the listeners get a precise overview of what is going on and what has gone on with me and my past. And we'll talk about Bigfoot. We'll talk about all the cool stuff that people want to hear about, that this ET contact told me about Bigfoot, who Bigfoot is and why there's Bigfoot. But let me get through this one little section right here first. Sure. In 1943 to 1980, I was a cesarean born, okay? Then there was the abduction. In 1951, the nightmare dreams started at age 13, okay? In 56, the transfiguration of my bust and the Bible levitation took place. And I also became, remember I told you I became the wild, kind of like the local nature wild animal whisperer, that I could go on my vacations. Yeah, so that took place that year during the 56s. And then the introduction to the ET handler up until 1958. You know, because like 57 to 58 or 56 is when he was introduced to me, okay? And then I had, in 58, remember me going through the episodes of my ability for death forecasting? And that went all the way through the 70s or the late 60s. But I had my first UFO experience and sighting that I thought was a UFO But this contact back in 2015 told me that was Ben. He was spying on me in this orb, which I'll get into these orbs later, and it was dark. I told you it looked like a ball bearing above my head out there near Pacheco Pass where I live in Gilroy. But it looked black. It didn't look like a silver aluminum cast throwing disc, UFO flying saucers. It was like a black ball bearing. Well, he told me that it was Ben, and he was tracking me above my residence in that area. Okay, he was monitoring me. Well, the two Mount Madonna Rangers from miles away, they saw the same UFO, and I found it later as testifiable in a paperback novel that I had come across in San Diego back in the late 60s. Okay, but I just informed you what this ET and contact told me what the truth was about that incident back in '58. So in '59, I started to see light orbs in Coyote Lake there in Gilroy in high school before I joined the Navy in 1960. Okay, well, I mentioned that I had, how they've been watching and monitoring me and this and that, and how they control circumstances for me to continue my journey, witnessing the things that were strange and mysterious. Well, I told you in 1960 I had been court-martialed in boot camp, remember, for hazing. And the captain that let me off, who was hearing the court-martial, he had his own ET give him a visual of letting me go. I would just be punished by not allowing our company to become, first place, like we were doing. So he cleared that up for me. I mean, anybody else that had been court-martialed in boot camp, what the hell? Hello? They'd have no career at all. You see what I'm saying? Okay.
Yeah.
So we're moving on. So from 1961 to 62, I was aboard the Finch in Operation Dominic. Okay?
Yeah.
And everybody can go there, and I think it's 5 minutes into the very first episode that doesn't have an episode number. You can go 5 minutes, 40 seconds, I think, into the timeline and start it. You don't have to wait. You can go there right to it, okay? But it involves, during that period of time, 61 to 62, shadow images, sightseeing, saved by, and here you were right again. Here you were right again. He said I was saved by the men in black. Remember me telling you the story of the men in black and the guy that his pickup levitated because he was trying to kidnap me and all that
shit?
Yeah,
no, I've never forgotten that story, Dave. I think about that all the time. The wheels spinning around, the guy threatens the car pulls up, they get in.
Yeah, you're so perceptive. And recently, I'm going to tell you something, how they told me you can improve on the, what do you call it, automatic locating. What do you call that? I can't even remember what it is.
Remote viewing.
Yeah, remote viewing. They told me how you can improve, and I'll give it to you at the end.
Sure.
You told me how you can improve, and others can improve. Okay. Anyway, let me go. So the Men in Black incident occurred. Okay, and also a lot of the sightings I had while I was on the Finch, et cetera, and then I went on from the Finch. Remember, in 1962 to 1965, the Concrete Despac, and I worked for the Admiral as his point man and being his staff artist. Remember me telling that? And I was able to do the automatic futuristic ship paintings and all that stuff for him, and a bunch of other stuff that took place. But in 1960, from that moment on, all kinds of stuff happened after I left the Navy, and so I just wanted to clarify a few things that people should understand. During that period of time, while I was still in the Navy until 1980, I came across in 1968 an old newspaper, a very, very old newspaper that somehow had weathered the storm for 5 years, and it was the annunciation with pictures of Robert F. Kennedy being assassinated in the car with his wife. Well, she lived through it. But I found it odd, 5 years that this paper had been laying next to and in and out the Wiener Schnitzel driveway. And I just thought, wow, I have something valuable here. I found a collectible, because this was an old paper, and I found it in June, okay, of '68. And guess what? That was the assassination of his brother, Robert F. Kennedy. Isn't that amazing? I found him, and he was killed later in the day. It wasn't announced early that around noon when I went to lunch to take my family in Coronado to lunch at the Wiener Schnitzel. But he was killed later that afternoon. But the paper I was holding in my hand was an old copy of a Union Tribune San Diego newspaper with the headlines and picture of Kennedy assassinated. Isn't that weird?
Rewind that. You found the newspaper in your driveway, you said?
No, the Wiener Schnitzel drive-in, like Jack in the Box. Back then, they were like German.
Oh, the drive-in. Got it.
Yeah. So while I was waiting for my hot dogs to take to the family car, I just was looking around, and there was this grove of, bamboo trees about 13 feet high, and clustered around the leaves and the old leaves and trash. I saw a newspaper, an old worn-out yellow newspaper, and I went and picked it up, and it was a full front page of the assassination of John F. Kennedy, our president. And I thought to myself, wow, I've got a collectible. I bet I can sell it. But that very same day is the day that his brother was assassinated.
Wow. That's quite a synchronicity there, quite a synchronicity.
You can explain it. You're more scientific than I am. I like that with synchronicity. What the heck was that?
Yeah.
So, and I'm looking at all these things that are going on, and that was like in 1968 and 72. Remember the Ruth Norman thing? Where I painted her picture. And people have to go to that.
They told you what to do, and it turned out just perfect.
Yeah. I thought they were from another world, man. And the reason why I didn't get the correct address and stuff like that is because they still know me and they still tell the story. And the painting I did with the aid of maybe the other side is known to those people. And listeners can go online and get their address, Ruth Norman, and ask them, is the Queen of Heaven, Ruth Norman, as her painting that David Noble did way back in the 70s, 72, is it known for being a healing art? And they'll tell you, yeah. So from 75 to 76, okay, I told you about the Subic Bay, Grandy Hill, Grandy Island Vietnamese gold heist. Nobody's reported about that, right? Mm-hmm. And I thought for sure that CIA was going to come and shut me up, but they didn't. So I went into the Shore Patrol. When I got back from being on the military police in the Philippines with the 7th Fleet Shore Patrol, and that incident happened, I was thrown right into the Shore Patrol headquarters in San Diego. And there was a couple of things that went down there that we'll talk next time that were kind of weird. But that's the same time that Montezuma's treasure, me and my ex-division officer aboard the USS Spirit, we found the Montezuma's treasure. Remember me telling you about when we were out there in the desert? And then it's followed up in an advanced story about the guy who I gave him the coordinates, and he showed up missing. Anyway. Yeah,
you gave him the coordinates, and he never he disappeared.
Yeah, he disappeared. Years later. So in 1977 was the Guantanamo Bay incident. 14 years later, with the Master Chief, who in 1962 revealed that he was part of the Armada, the British, the French, United States, eventually, going on location there in the South Pacific, trying to figure out how to salvage this UFO that had gone down that I witnessed. He was a second class captain.
You're saying it was an international recovery effort?
Everybody except Japan, China, and Russia. Russia had snoop trawlers, which they always followed the fleet, American, French, and British fleet, doing exercise warrior drills and exercise on the ocean out there in South Pacific. They did it in the Pacific too. But this was right around the time of the Cuban crisis coming on. You know what I'm talking about? So there was a lot of distractions from this big event. Nobody's talking. I think it's bigger. It's bigger than Roswell, as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, so that took place in 61, 62. But it was in 1977 that I met the Master Chief, who was a second class back then, in 62. He was a Master Chief at 77 on Guantanamo. And then I told you about my near-death experience with that big wave hauling my ass out from that, remember, that cavern?
Yep, I think I was, and all of a sudden you ended up at the top. A wave came and it pushed you right to the top, right?
I think again I was saved by the ETs who were watching me. Because I didn't know how to swim. I had a snorkel. I was one of the few Navy people that would, challenge the sea as long as I had a snorkel and mask and fins. So that was a close one too. I did that in Christmas Island back in 62. I almost died. That's another story. But listen, in 79, I went aboard the Nimitz. Dream predictions on the Nimitz. I went on board 79, and I was there from 76 to 79. Can you believe that? So if anybody knows anything about UFOs, USOs, paranormal, on the Nimitz to this day, nobody's going back there and reviewing me. You're the only one, Doc. So get this out there. This recent stuff about Tic Tacs and pollywogs and all that crap, it was going back in 76 and 79 when I was working in the Intel Center. Hello?
Well, Dave, let me ask you one quick question about that, since you bring up the recent Nimitz events.
Yeah.
And this is just quick, and then you can go back to what you're talking about. But a lot of us have always wondered, we were told that this Tic Tac was seen hovering over a seamount, something submerged under the water that was making the water churn around about the size of a 747, and Fravor sees the Tic Tacs hovering over this, area of disturbed water.
Yeah.
And we never had any more detail. Do you have any hint or clue what that could have been?
Well, if you remember, I told you prior to my being stationed there in Operation Dominic, there was an incident where they were there. I don't know who it was, but it's logged in. It's logged in that there was an attempt to recover a Navy monitoring sonar system, and there was a USO that interrupted the operation, and they did everything they could to identify who the underwater bogey was, but they were able to recover this monitoring sonar system, which weighed, it must have weighed hundreds of pounds, because in those days electronics was different. It was recorded, and my personal conversation could have been scuttlebutt, it could have been rumors. I have no proof from other picket ship sailors, not officers like I did aboard the Finch. They were informed that and believed that they were recovering, that these ET USOs were recovering all the pods and all the sonar detectors that the Navy was throwing down to try to detect them. And Russian stuff. Yeah. They were harvesting, I'll use the word early, they were harvesting high-tech sonar drones that were used to cover the bottom of the ocean floors, because Russia had piped into one of our cables. Remember that? Yeah.
No, and I got to tell you, Dave, you're right on there, because do you remember we were told that Fravor had heard a story of, I'm not remembering at this point what it was. They were doing some test of something that was floating, and something came up from the water and grabbed it.
Yeah.
And do you remember Fravor talking about that somewhere in one of his interviews a couple of times? He said that he had heard that they were monitoring, it was sonar buoy or something, and they saw something come up from under the water, grab it, take it down. Yeah, so.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, you can dot the dots, cross the T's, and anybody who
there's a lot of
follows
dots
these,
to connect here.
and connect it with other witnesses and other channels that you've created. God bless you, doctor. You're going to be known one day and famous. They're going to build a bust.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks, you too. So feel free to go ahead. So you're on.
So from 1980 to 1994 was the Whalen House. Remember?
Whalen House.
I had just arrived there soon after, about 4 years later. About a year later, because my last command from the from the Nimitz. Excuse me. I often get those two confused. Please forgive me, listeners. Aboard the Nimitz was my last ship, where I talked to officers and enlisted men, pilots, etc., people in sonar, radar room, CIC, who all talked about reporting, bogeys back then, and how the pilots who would turn over their film to CIC would have it flown off the Nimitz, either whether they were imported or out at sea. They'd be flown away within 5 hours of processing the film. There was nothing left in the intel center where they had a special officer that would package it all up, and we never had a chance to eval it. That wasn't my job, but I knew the photographers that did. So all of that stuff would be taken off the Nimitz long before we could get pictures or make copies if we wanted to. And, people processing their family pictures in the intel too, but we never got any UFO intel. So I went to 1980. My last command was Vic Yearland, and that was when I was at the peak of my automatic painting, where I did that secret mural painting of satellites the military, Navy were putting up that nobody knew about. And I was almost interviewed by CIA because they wanted to know how I got the exact depiction in a painting of a secret spy satellite they had sent up. But there's also the period that I did the human spirit in the crystal sphere. Remember me telling you that? I did a painting of a human naked figure with the three figures looking down inside the sphere. And
right.
Yeah. If you go to that channel, I don't know what episode it is, you'll get a story of that. Well, listen, I'm going to implement something here from possible episode 8. I got an automatic download of redoing that painting. I made a sketch. I wanted to send it to you, but from the sketch is going to evolve a painting that replicates that event that I painted, and it's going to have an explanation. But I have no idea what my new ET informer is going to let me know what it represents. But it's going to be interesting for you to see it when I'm done. And I'm going to make it special for episode 8 for you to have a copy of it so you can show the audience.
Oh, great.
So, yeah. So anyway, we move on to part 2 from 1980 to 94, and that's the Whalen House. Now, in the beginning of this, I talked about with you that they knew Ben. Now, I had no idea that they knew who Ben was, and I didn't realize that till I saw the picture and it was explained to me in 2015. And that took place in 1958, 59. Hello. Yeah. But when I moved into the Whalen House between 1980 and 1994, there were fairy circles out in the front yard. Remember the pet cat, Yaya? He became a sacrifice for an occult group there in the neighborhood, and His spirit used to dance and walk around the roof of the house during the day and night, and I'd go out there, I couldn't find him, but I knew it was his spirit. Remember the incident of the repair vent and heater man that came out to fix the house that almost burned the house down, and he went out with the tools chasing him, and and I knew it was my mom.
I want to see a drawing of that one. I want to see a drawing.
Okay, I'll do one for you. And you know what? I knew it was Mom because the heater cabinet was right next to her bedroom, the one that almost burned down the house. But I knew it was Mom. I knew her spirit. She must have opened that door and just freaked the dude out, man. So, and then the TV, radio, the utilities in the garage would go off and on. Mom's Mexican music would come on after midnight. I had to go shut it off. And none of those were connected. No power attached to them. The phone would ring and it was disconnected because it would do that often. I'd have it disconnected and the phone would go off in the middle of the night. without being connected to the wall outlet. So all this shit, excuse my French, was going on, you know, and visitors and family would come over. They'd see Mom's spirit running around in her bathrobe. She had a favorite bathrobe she wear, you know. So, you know, I mentioned about my stepfather saying that the house was evil. I didn't understand what the hell he was talking about. Maybe he knew about Ben, maybe not. But I knew my mother did. I knew my mother did. Years later, I discovered it in that picture. That happened in 1958. I didn't discover it till 2014. Hello? All right? So, anyway, I had been locked in the bedroom in that house many times. You know, I had to call in. I wasn't coming to work. Almost lost my job at GTE Government Systems because I was locked in my room a couple of times. You know, and remember the draw curtain? Remember I told you her spirit picked up the draw curtain in the bedroom, picked it all the way to the ceiling, and then dropped it on the floor? It freaked me out. I couldn't get out fast enough from that bedroom. Okay? So...
Dave, when did that incident happen where you got locked in the room?
Yeah, this happened between 1980 and 1994.
Okay, got it.
And this was when I was working for GTE. Now, if anybody wants proof I work for GTE Government System as a high-tech illustrator, I still have check stubs, okay? I mean, you got everything else, right? I've sent you a lot of my birth certificate, and all that stuff. I sent you my DD-214, my military pictures, working for Intel Center aboard the Nimitz, you know, right? Yeah.
I've got it all here.
You got it all there, and you can sort it out. I mean, you're getting an overview. You can paste it and cut all you want. This will be one of the great, you know, episode channels you've ever produced. I guarantee it. And there's going to be a lot of people out there stealing material from what I'm saying to put in their books and maybe modify it or whatever they want to do. But there's some things that's copyrighted, and I'll let you know which ones they are. But anyway, most of the pictures I sent that I draw or paint are going to be copyrighted, so I don't want them to copy it. Anyway, so from 94, you get into the whole thing, the lockdown I had, the phone call, ring and unplugged. Remember the TV going off and it was unplugged and all that stuff going on? Yeah. Pictures that would show up, people I didn't even know, photographs would show up in the house, on the table, on the windowsill. I didn't know who these people were. When I'd leave the house and come home from work, I'd find these images. The house is locked down. How do these pictures get there? I don't know. Okay? So now I want to move on here a little bit to describe what happened after I left the Whalen house. Okay? Because we're moving into a time period where 1994, okay, to 2015. Okay, I moved to Southern California. I gave the house away to my kids, my first litter. Okay, practically. So I didn't want anything more to do with that area. And I was glad when I got down to Southern California. Are you still with me, Doc?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, all right. But I didn't know that I had moved after the orb forecast of where I was going to end up there on Voltaire and Sunset Cliffs in Ocean Beach was the site that it was. What do you call those entrances? You come in and out, different dimensions. There's a name for that. I forget what the hell it is.
A portal?
Portal. I didn't realize it was a portal until I left, and it was explained to me. Okay, it was explained to me by this ET who replaced my ET handler as my contact. He wants to be referred to as the ET contact and nothing else. But on the sideline, he's a skip tracer, a bounty hunter, looking for Ben. I don't know if he caught him or not. I hope he did. But anyway, from 1994 to 2050, there were orb predictions that I, viewer remote that I saw when I got to that location. I had automatic paintings that I did for religious people. I can't remember how I remember how I had this feeling that I could produce healing art. Okay. And I put it up in my studio, a few pieces of people who came into my art studio would come back 2 or 3 times and say, every time I look at that painting, I feel good. My headache goes away, my rheumatism, my arthritis. But as soon as I step outside, the damn thing comes back. How much is that painting? Well, the word got around, and then I had a request from a nun, which was the last one I did. And so that was a phase of paranormal event that was taking place there. But I also had alley ghosts and spirits that were chasing people down the alley. These people weren't on drugs. I knew them. They were my neighbors. They were running from invisible things. Okay, this portal that I tagged as a portal for the unknown paranormal spirits coming in and out was explained to me by this ET in 2014-15 that it was a portal, and it had been since the early 1930s, because a lot of the gunshots we would hear at night, I would wake me up at night living there in that location. I would hear gunshots, and I would hear people screaming, and I'd hear sirens. But the sirens from the police cars were like in the 1940s. They weren't like the modern sirens that you would hear in modern-day police calls. And the gunshots, what this ET told me, this informant, was that these were spiritual recordings that were going off back during the bootlegging days in that area of Ocean Beach. And that, they were just, they were spiritual recordings is how he viewed it to me. And like it went across my mind, like watching an old gray black and white movie of Al Capone and, Keystone cops chasing each other. That's how he flashed it into my mind. So I just went along with that. And time went on. When I first encountered, my son had an encounter in his bedroom. He was like 5 years old, a ghost, an old lady in his room. And on several occasions, he would come out, not screaming or yelling. He would just come out and say, "Dad." She started to come and follow me in the bathroom when I'm taking a crap, So I would put holy water in his room, and then it stopped, okay? Then during that period of time, 94 to 2015, I had strange visitors, the man in white. Remember me telling you about the man in white warning me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Remember him telling me not to be talking about this stuff we're talking about now? And I also had a period of time where I supplemented my income doing crystal ball readings at Balboa Park on Sundays. And I was so accurate, I would get people from the Chamber of Commerce and I'm not going to mention names at that period of time, but I would get judges, people who owed taxes, people from China who were out here vacationing. And one time there was a Chinaman who had a young lady with him, and I said, "Well, how's your daughter? Does she like San Diego?" And he smiled, and I said, "I'm just being polite and respectful." I said, "She's not related to you. She's a hooker." He gave me $50. Normally I'd get $1. He gave me $50. He smiled. I think that was, just he liked my performance, I guess. So anyway, in that period of time, from 94 to 2015, I would go to the casinos, and I would come close to winning, but I'd never win. There was an incident my last time. I had $1 and I put it in the slot, and it was like 4 sevens coming up, and I just had this feeling I was going to win the 10 grand, and so I pulled the handle of the slot machine. And by the way, this is the last time I ever went to a casino. This was back in. Anyway, there was a gentleman that came around the corner with a drink, and he accidentally bumped my arm. At the time, all the sevens were showing up, and he bumped my arm as the last 7 was going to hit the window, and it only came down halfway. He took away my 10 grand. But I want to mention that when I would go to the casinos, I would, like the roulette wheel, I'll remember this one real vividly. This guy had taken his last chips, and I don't know how much it was. And I just told him, I came behind him, and I whispered in his ear, and there were other people placing bets at the Wheel of Fortune. And there, you had the double lot and triple lot. Nobody bets on those. I says, put all your money on the triple lot. That's the 3 zeros. He says, what? Put all of it on the triple Z. And they spun the wheel of fortune. And guess what? It landed on the triple lot. And he walked away with a couple grand. And you know what? He didn't even give me a damn tip. He was so excited. I just walked away. Yeah. So those were some of the things, and there's a lot more we can go over in chapter, episode 8. But I just want to make sure that we talk on the subject of Bigfoot. Bigfoot.
Yeah, right.
Everybody want to talk about Bigfoot? Huh?
I think we do. Yes.
Okay, let's talk about Bigfoot. Okay. I've got a lot of notes on the crystal sphere transporter. That is a technology in the dark realm that is trillions of years of advance that humans will never probably ever see because the Earth will no longer exist. But they travel in a crystal transporter sphere among themselves, among the Google number that exists out there between the realms in the dark, invisible realm. That's how they move about, and they move about like that on Earth. And these crystal transporter spheres can shape relative size to the size of a pea, and its contents, occupants, relatively can shrink down to the same size without any ill effect. Okay? So Bigfoot is a regular, he's a regular traveler in these spheres. And the reason why is because he has been created and developed for the sole purpose of collecting souls and harvesting souls. Okay? And when I told you in our trailer for episode 7, the people were not going to like what I had to tell them, okay, because ETs are after the byproduct. And what are the byproducts? The spirits of humans. Some get away and some don't. And the ones that don't get away, they are harvested. And I'll tell you what they do with those after we get through Bigfoot. But anyway, Bigfoot, he can appear and disappear. He can change his size in these spheres that are invisible. And they can camouflage. They can appear like a rock. They can appear like a tree. They can appear whatever they want. And it's not like the Predator in the movie The Predator. It's a lot more advanced than that. He could be right next to you, or he could be in your pocket inside one of these spheres, and you'd never know it. That's how advanced these people are. And the sole purpose is for them to aid and assist ET harvesters. If an ET harvester has been, let's say, connected to someone who was born 20 years earlier and the person is dying or accidentally dies, they're there. They're there to catch the spirit, to harvest the spirit. If it's a bad spirit, boy, I'll tell you, they've got a good chance to catch it because it ponders. It doesn't know where or why, how it died, under what circumstances. It was afraid to die, whatever it is. But good spirits, and I'm using that term. It's not a term they gave me. I'm just saying it. Okay, it's just from me, folks. A good spirit, in the blinking of an eye, as soon as they leave the host, the dead host, they don't have a chance to snap them up. It's only the ones that ponder, the slow ones. Okay? Now, ETs assist because if the spirit harvester who turns into originally he is your handler, and then he changes, he changes hats, so to speak. He becomes the harvester. He's worked all his ass off, being there for you and nurturing you and protecting you and doing all this stuff. And his reward is to capture your soul. Okay? And the main reason they capture souls is because they want to know why souls don't die. They don't self-destruct. They continue. Well, spirit souls, people from the realm of the dark realm, they have a lifespan. Okay? They all have a lifespan. And they don't exist as long as they are able to maintain these spirit souls or the spirits that they capture. Okay? So they're trying to find out why. What is it about these spirits that are harvested from humans? And believe me, there are other millions and millions of planets that have human-like characters that have spirit souls. And throughout the spirit realm, the dark realm, they're all focusing on this one objective: to get the same mysterious potentiality of existing continuously without whatever they call themselves, disintegrating or dying or whatever they do. He never explained that to me. But he just said they all have a time limit. So they're all working on the same goal, the same purpose, in this purpose of collecting spirit souls. So as it goes on, go ahead.
So this information, is this information that you've been able to verify yourself, or are you just
no? This is
what?
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you got. That's a very good question. Thank you. This is what I assimilated from the visual communication I have with him. Remember, we cannot communicate. They do not communicate in a dialogue or narrative that you and I are doing right now. It has to be in a mental visual projection, where I could be giving only 40 or 50% of exactly what they're trying to show me, and I'm assembling it and interpreting it and giving it to you and the listeners as I see it in my mind's eye. Okay. Now, only on a few occasions do they verify or consummate or say, yeah, you're right on. Because you see, the whole thing is I'm not any more important than the person who's going to die next door and they're waiting for my soul. You understand what I'm saying? I could be somewhere in the dark realm when I die, because I don't know where I want to go. I don't know what I would like to evolve into. I have no idea. I don't believe in a God. If I'm an atheist, then you're good. You're a good selection if you're an atheist. That's all I'm going to say. That's my opinion. Okay, folks, that's my opinion. That's not theirs. But what he did reveal to me, that people that are confused, like, let's say, drugs, if you're on drugs, if you're an alcoholic, or if you, for some reason or other, you're mentally disturbed and you die, you don't know you're dying, but then you leave your body, well, you're still in that state. Your soul is still in that state of consciousness. Those are the ones they want. It seems to me, now this is my opinion, it seems to me the ones of clear mind, the ones that have and believe they're going to a Christian, Buddhist, Muslim heaven, whatever it may be, those are the ones that are difficult to catch or to capture. But Bigfoot, when he's there capturing, he has this transparent sphere resting above the deceased, or who's going to be deceased, so that it enters into the sphere. But the only ones that seem to enter the sphere are the ones I explained that are lost. The one spirits, and they all come out like a pin light, is the vision I got. All spirits come out like a light, like a light bug or something like that. I don't know. That's what I call it. But some, they just avoid the sphere, and others are just drawn to it, and that's the ones that they harvest. Okay. So you got any questions up to this point?
Yeah. No. When you're talking about Bigfoot, are you talking about all Bigfoot that we are familiar with, including Yeti?
Yeah, I'm talking about every Bigfoot on the planet. That's why there has no evidence. That's why there's a conflict between those that believe and those that don't believe. Those that say they have evidence, but there's a conflict of interest. This is why 411 has not solved one case about a missing person, other than the fact that it might be demise, it might be murder, it might be a serial killer, it might be somebody who's just lost.
Now,
kids that are found miles,
kids
that are found
remote parts,
people who are found at any age, young, older, and they're found on mountaintops and they're found miles away. They've been transported by Bigfoot in his invisible sphere. And sometimes people who say, I just turned around for a moment and my kid was there and now they're gone. Well, they're inside the sphere. The sphere hasn't left. They're there. But the kid cannot cry out. He can bang on the sphere with the Bigfoot. He might be so traumatized by Bigfoot being in there that he just faints and passes out. You see? But then Bigfoot gets an order from the handler, who's the ET handler, or who's ever been captured, who's ever been detained, who's ever been saved. Because these spheres with Bigfoot and the handler, they can be saved. They don't necessarily take everybody that they pick up, okay, or save lives. You know the people that pick up these cars that fallen on somebody and they have strength they never knew they had before and they call it adrenaline and crap? No.
Sure.
No. Those are the spheres. That's a Bigfoot, or it might be the ET in the sphere, or it might be like a drone controlled, and that's what does it. It accounts for all the paranormal. It accounts for books falling off the shelf. It accounts for all the stuff that people think is ESP, paranormal, and all that. What they're telling me, what they've informed me, it's all from the dark spiritual realm, these spheres that they have, that they move about. That's the only way they can move about in the 3D realm we call our world, our cosmos. Now, this is really a kicker here. It's going to blow you out of your socks. The thing they call the Big Bang, okay, the Big Bang, originally it was the power source that the two conflicting sides came head to head. And that's the reason why the so-called 3D realm cosmos that we're conscious of evolved. And we're constantly evolving. And that's what's pushing space out. That's what's causing the expansion in space. Space is the dark realm of the ETs that have been communicating with me. And the light that's created, the energy that's created from the 3D realms is causing this expansion. It's not doing it on its own. And that's what the ET dark realm, the spirit realm, is trying to control, is the expansion of these cosmos, these galaxies being produced. Now here's a real kicker.
No. Before you get to the kicker, so let me just ask one thing. So why would they want to control it?
Because it's pushing them it's pushing them out of their element. It's separating them from each other. Okay? If they're connected, then they're being separated. Okay? Now, how much time I got left?
Oh, we got about 10 minutes to go. And you were going to give me the kicker? What was the real kicker?
What part? is
You were saying, here's the kicker, and I interrupted you. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, the real kicker is that these constant evolutions of the third dimension realm we live in are creating galaxies, but each galaxy has its own tune. Okay? If we went to Alpha Centauri, if we got to Alpha Centauri, all the realities of Alpha Centauri would be totally different than our physics. The mathematics, for example, okay? The rationalization we think is a standard in our environment, among our stars, among our suns, etc., in our galaxy, is different. They're in Alpha Centauri because their design and makeup and energy produces a different harmonics. Different harmonics. Okay? So everything we might fantasize, and I'm only putting this out there, it's not from my ET, informer, is that you might find Superman on there. You might find zombies on there. You might find, all the things that we fantasize in our movies that are impossible for us to do, you might find there in Alpha Centauri because of the harmonics. And when we look through our telescopes, we're at the shapes of these different cosmos, galaxies, they're all singing to a different tune. And the spectrum of light we receive is so filtered through the gravity plasma I'm talking about, that we just maybe get 20 or 30% of the truth. But it's all rearranged in a way that our mindset can receive. And that's what they're telling me. But the visual replies. Okay. Yeah. There's a lot more kickers in there, but I want to save some of this cool stuff for episode 8. But I want to tell you about your, let's see, remember the candle I told you about? I told you about the candle, the prediction, when it caught on fire in my house about this corona stuff. Remember I told you about that?
Yeah, that was last time we did the live episode, right? Yeah.
The date that it occurred was the same date that China had its big yearly festival.
Right. You said this candle just spontaneously lit itself?
Yeah. And it burned the head of Jesus off on the decal wrapping around it. And it also was the day that Italy was so far struck by it that it was concealing how many people have died. Okay. So I wanted to tell you about there's a whole bunch more. He said that I had an experience of what it's like to be a spirit in the dark realm with my near-death experience. Remember me telling you about my near-death experience?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And that hand extension that saved me was one of them that had permission to do it. They have to have permission to do a lot of things. They never said who gives them permission. But a lot of this stuff, everything from being an ET handler to being a harvester to being whatever they prefer titles, they have to have an endorsement from a higher order within the dark spirit realm they come from. Okay. Remote viewing. This is for you. Get to know your spirit or ET handler. Believe that you have an ET handler. Anybody that's exercising or wants automatic drawing or automatic viewing or whatever you want to get involved with, that some people say is hocus pocus, ESP, paranormal, they really want to be connected. They need to buddy up with their ET handler because he is an extension. He's an extension, not of you, but he can come to and fro when you can't. If you're familiar with and that is your passion, to be a remote viewer, get to know your ET handler because he'll do the walking for you, and that's my phrase. He'll go there and send back mental visuals of what's going on if you want to draw it, if you want to talk about it. And that's what he told me. That's what he told me. But how many? So this is my opinion. This is my opinion. I'm not his. This is what's coming is my opinion. How many people are going to believe what I'm saying? How many people are going to be so confident that they can talk? And if you want to call him your guardian angel, I don't think that's a good idea. They like their own designation. If he's your ET handler, he respects that call. Call it what it is. Okay? How would you like to be called dildo when that's not your name? Okay? When you don't think of yourself as a dildo. Okay? So if I'm a newbie at this, and someone told me, if you want to be a, remote viewer, connect with your ET handler. Well, I go into a quiet place and I could openly talk, or I could say, hey, is it, are you really there? Are you really, but they're not, only if it's for the greater good are they there to save your life. Are they to get you to prevent something major that you might be involved with? It's going to change the timeline of something that is a priority beyond your knowledge. They don't have a say over that because they take an order from a higher order than just themselves. There's a pecking order everywhere, basically, is what I was visualized. Okay, but these so-called big feet, they're just tools for the dark spirit realm. Okay, You'll never find one, and if they do, it's going to be a hoax. Okay, they'll and and it's more alive as a fable than it is real to them. Because if they knew what was real, everybody wouldn't come out of their home. Do you think this Corona would keep people home? No, people would stay home. They wouldn't go in the forest. Okay. You got any questions now?
Yeah. So here's one thing I'm wondering about the Bigfoot. I mean, so we've heard about missing 411. Lots of people disappearing in parks and places like that. With no clues, no trace, nothing.
Yeah.
But what about structures that are found out in the forest? Those weird tree structures and the howls that people hear, sounds and things like the footprints and all that. There is some physical evidence that this is a
but
real creature.
that's all created deliberately. That's all either by man deliberately to create a host, human host doing it deliberately outside the invitation of that they believe is what they're doing. Contradicting what they're doing. It all helps in the folklore to create this projection of myth, which they like. They can go about their business doing it. Yeah, they can go about their business doing what they do.
They create myths around themselves too.
Yeah, exactly. With the UFOs, with the ghosts, the poltergeists.
Yeah,
if you can think of it, they can do it. Okay. Mm-hmm. Now, when Ben was lying on the couch back in 1956, and he saw this ship changing in my head, it's because I was talking about the Bible. I was talking about there is really a Virgin Mary, the Mother of God. I can still remember the conversation, not in detail, but I can remember what we were talking about. And I didn't know it was hitting a hard core in him, because on the side, which he should not have been doing, he was cohabitating with a priest. Okay? And that's his story. That's not mine. Okay? And if they break a vow, then they have to be collected themselves, and they have to stand before their judge. And that's why Ben broke it off with me. But he thought by staying close and impacting the lives of my parents, who were vulnerable at the time, okay, because they were in and out of their faith system or whatever the belief system they had at the time, they were easy prey. So if he could collect more souls, okay, as a ET harvester or a collector or whatever, controller, beginning as a controller, then he would look good, because he had violated a code. Okay, an extreme code, but you don't do that sort of thing. What he did, so that's why he went rogue back in 56, 58. Yeah.
Okay, Dave, we're going to have to sum it up for today.
Okay, my friend.
The rest for episode. Anything else you want to add before we end our call today?
No, it's been a pleasure talking. It's been a pleasure sharing. I've hit on many things, and I just hope that the listeners enjoyed it. And I know there's going to be a load of questions, because this is loaded. And then I think episode 8, whenever you want to do it.
Great, Dave. Well, thanks again. Thank you for sharing all your experiences. You got my head, as usual. We were spinning around with a lot of ideas, and that's the whole point.
I'll tell you where I sense the weak area is. If I was a listener, if I was listening on the outside, is how it came to be that I was able to link up with another ET, and it goes back to my introduction, where I was invited to sit down with him.
Right, that's right. You were telling that story in the beginning. Yeah.
But he had to get permission. I mean, it's not just something he could just start babbling or whatever you want to do visually in my mind. He had to get permission to do that, and to make it maybe who's the benefactor? What's the purpose? I have a lot of questions myself. Here I am, 77 years old. Is this going to help me get past the the Bigfoot in the sphere. I don't know.
We will. You'll have to let us know someday. But Dave, thanks very much, and let's talk again soon. I'll let you know when the episode's up, and we'll look forward to episode 8. Okay, take care, Dave.
Bye.
Have a good day. Yep. Bye-bye.